It's not your lack of education. Your biggest problem is not your lack of money. Let me tell you something straight, and I need you to hear it with your spirit, not just your ears. You've been conditioned by limitation. You've been trained by survival. You've been taught to shrink your dreams just enough so they don't intimidate your reality. And now you've built a mindset around comfort instead of calling. It's not your job, your environment, or your past. Your biggest problem is that you think too small. Who convinced you that you should be grateful for crumbs when God called you to own the bakery? Let me ask you a question. Who gave you permission to settle? Who told you that just enough was your destiny? We talk about purpose, but we spend more time managing problems than multiplying potential. We say we believe in abundance, but our decisions are based in fear. The truth is, you don't get what you want in life, you get what you believe. And too many of us are praying for breakthroughs while thinking like broke people. See, small thinking is spiritual disobedience. It is the rejection of the divine image you were made in. You weren't created to play defense in life. You were created to dominate with divine authority. You were born with a mind that can create wealth. You were born with gifts that solve problems. When you think small, you insult the Creator who designed you with greatness in mind. You were born with a voice that can speak life, move nations, change generations. But as long as you keep thinking small, you self-talk yourself out of opportunities. You yourself say, I can set, when you should say, I set, 𝐂𝐸𝐷. Thinking small doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you stuck. You'll wait for approval when you were already appointed. It doesn't make you humble. It makes you invisible. There is nothing holy about hiding your potential. There is nothing righteous about robbing the world of your God-given greatness. Don't pray for your needs, believe for your overflow. You want to change your life? You want to level up? You want to experience overflow? Then stretch your vision. You're not here to get by. You're here to break chains. Don't build a business just to survive. Build an empire that blesses others. So listen, aim for influence, aim for impact. You're not here to think small. You're here to expand the kingdom. You're not here to fit in. You're here to stand out. You were never supposed to shrink to fit your situation. Don't you dare think small another day in your life. Your situation is supposed to rise to match your expectation. So raise your expectation, elevate your imagination, enlarge your territory, because the size of your thinking determines the size of your harvest. You've been told your biggest problem is your background. You've been told your struggle comes from where you were born, how much money your parents had, or the type of education you received. You've been trained to believe that your limitations are external, that the economy is the issue, that society is unfair, that the system is broken. But let me give you the truth, the uncomfortable, unfiltered, undeniable truth. Your biggest problem is that you think too small. And your harvest is waiting. You've been sitting on ideas that were meant to build empires, but you've reduced them to side hustles. You've been praying for a breakthrough, but planning as if you're still bound. You've been asking for abundance with a mindset soaked in scarcity. You don't even realize it, but every time you second guess your potential, every time you doubt your worth, every time you settle for less, you are agreeing to limitation that doesn't even belong to you. Let me tell you something that might shake your soul a little. The limitation is not around you, it's inside you. It's not what's in your bank account that's stopping you. It's what's in your belief system. It's not your boss. It's not your spouse. It's not the government. It's not your race, your age, your gender, or your upbringing. It's the thoughts you rehearse every single day that convince you that greatness is reserved for someone else, that success is a fantasy you're not allowed to touch, that overflow is too much to ask for. And because you've believed that, you've adapted your entire life around small thinking. You keep adjusting your dreams to fit your reality. Instead of expanding your vision to shift your reality, you keep aiming for goals that don't stretch you, that don't scare you, that don't scare you, that don't require faith. Why? Because thinking small feels safe. It feels manageable. It gives you a sense of control. But here's the problem. You were never created to live in control. You were created to live in calling. And calling always demands you go beyond what you see, what you feel, and what you understand. And that mindset, That's not humility. That's fear dressed in wisdom. That's self-sabotage wearing a mask called realism. You've got to stop measuring your potential by your current position. Where you are right now has nothing to do with where you're capable of going. Just because you've been struggling doesn't mean you're stuck. Just because it's been hard doesn't mean you're finished. But thinking small will convince you that your best option is to cope instead of conquer. It will trick you into managing your pain instead of multiplying your purpose. You'll start calling small normal. You'll say things like, at least I have something, or this is good enough for me. But let me ask you, did the God who created you ever say good enough when he made you? Did he put gifts in you so they could collect dust? Did he put vision in you so you could shrink it to fit your insecurity? Absolutely not. The problem is not that you dream too big. The problem is you've been taught to shrink before you speak, to edit yourself before you even try, to lower your expectations so you don't get disappointed. You can't expect to walk in overflow while thinking in scarcity. You can't expect to dominate in life while making decisions rooted in fear. You want to build a business? Stop thinking like a worker. You want to create generational wealth? Stop thinking like a consumer. You want to rise in your purpose? Stop thinking like a prisoner. Because as long as you keep thinking small, you will keep attracting small opportunities, small income, small relationships, small influence, small impact. And the worst part is you'll get comfortable in it. You see, the world won't expand for you until your thoughts do. Your bank account won't grow until your belief system does. Your business can't scale if your thinking is stuck in survival mode. You want more, think more. Not just more activity, more capacity, more vision, more faith, more strategy, more discipline. But you can't access any of that while holding on to limited thoughts that tell you it's impossible, or that you're not ready, or that it's too late. You weren't born to manage, you were born to master. And the only thing keeping you from mastery is the smallness of your thoughts. Small thoughts make you play defense in life. You're always reacting, always protecting, always hiding. But big thinking is offensive. Oh, big thinking is creative. Big thinking builds, it creates space for God to move. It allows the unseen to become visible. It speaks to the mountain, not about it. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you thought in overflow? Not just enough to pay the bills. Not just enough to make it through the month. I'm talking about thinking that requires multiplication. Vision that demands elevation. When was the last time you sat down and planned from the place of destiny, not desperation? Because your future is being built right now by the quality of your thoughts. You don't get what you want, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you expect, and your expectations are shaped by your thoughts. Some of you are praying for doors to open, but you're thinking like someone who's not even qualified to walk through them. And that's why the opportunity hasn't come. Not because you're not ready, but because your mind hasn't caught up with your calling. You keep asking for more territory, but you haven't expanded your mental real estate. There's no room in your thinking for the abundance you're asking for. This is the real reason most people stay stuck. They don't need more time. They don't need more information. They need a transformation in the way they think. Because until your thoughts change, your life you can't outrun your mindset. You can't build beyond your belief system. You can't scale a business, a dream, or a destiny with a mind that was trained to survive. And let me tell you, thinking small is not harmless. It is destructive. It kills your creativity. It suffocates your courage. It disconnects you from your divine identity because you were not created to think in limitation. You were made in the image of a limitless God. And the only thing he ever told you to limit was your belief in what the world tells you is impossible. Because until you do that, nothing changes, not your income, not your influence, not your impact. Everything you're praying for is on the other side of your thought life. You want to experience transformation, change your thoughts. You want to receive overflow. Upgrade your expectations. You want to fulfill your calling. Start thinking like a creator, not a consumer. When you think small, you not only shrink your future, you delay the deliverance of everyone assigned to your gift. There are people waiting for you to think bigger. There are lives attached to your expansion. There are generations tied to your vision. When you play small, you make it all about you. Your fear, your past, your struggle. But when you think big, you step into something bigger than you. You step into divine purpose, into legacy, into impact that lives beyond your name. So what's it going to be? Another year of excuses? Another month of self-doubt? Another day of staying comfortable in a life you were never meant to settle for? Or are you going to shift? Are you going to renew your mind? Are you going to take the limits off your thinking and finally become who you were created to be? You're not here to survive. You're here to multiply, to rule, to dominate in the realm of your assignment. But dominion requires discipline. Expansion demands elevation. If your thoughts are still small, your results will always be delayed. You've got to give yourself permission to think differently, to imagine bigger, to believe beyond your upbringing, because God didn't put greatness in you for it to be buried by excuses. And if you're still doubting whether you can do it, let me remind you, your doubt is not evidence of reality. It's evidence of a mindset that hasn't been renewed yet. But the moment you renew your thinking, everything changes. The right thoughts attract the right people. The right thoughts generate the right actions. The right thoughts unlock the next level. You don't have a resource problem, you have a revelation problem. And once you get the revelation that your thoughts are your biggest asset or your biggest liability, you'll start guarding them like gold. You'll start feeding your mind with truth instead of fear, with abundance instead of anxiety, with vision instead of victimhood. Because you'll finally understand that your future is not waiting for more money. It's waiting for more belief. You want to go higher? Then think higher. You want to live bigger? Then think bigger. The only ceiling is the one you build with your thoughts. Tear it down. Replace it with faith, with clarity, with a boldness that reflects the truth of who you are, not who the world told you to be. Because once you stop thinking small, you'll stop living small. And once that shift happens, there is no limit to what you can become. Every time someone laughed at your dream, you shrank a little. Every time someone told you to be realistic, you adjusted. Every time you failed and heard, "I told you so," you backed off. And before you even realized what was happening, you built a life around limits that weren't even yours. You didn't decide to think small. You were taught to. You didn't choose to lower your standards. You were trained to do it. You've been surviving on leftovers while your spirit was made for overflow. You've been building your life on borrowed beliefs passed down by people who were too afraid to believe for themselves. From the time you were young, you were taught to play it safe, to stay in line, to follow the rules, to be realistic. You were trained to silence your ambition and call it maturity. You were told not to dream too big, not to ask for too much, not to stand out too far. And slowly over time, you accepted the lie. You believed that comfort was better than calling, that safety was better than destiny, and that average was acceptable if it meant you wouldn't be disappointed. You didn't start out that way. You didn't come into this world small. You came in with wonder in your eyes, with unlimited imagination, with a bold spirit that believed anything was possible. But life started chiseling away at that, bit by bit, word by word, experience by experience. You were conditioned to settle. You were never meant to just get by. You were meant to rise, to lead, to multiply, to overflow. But the problem is, you've spent so long adjusting to disappointment that you now prepare for it. You sabotage your own momentum with questions like, what if it doesn't work? What if I fail again? What if people laugh? But have you ever asked, what if it works? What if I'm more powerful than I thought? What if this time I win? You see, your mind has been programmed to focus on what could go wrong, not what could go right. That's what settling does. It doesn't just kill your dream, it trains you to believe that dreaming is dangerous. And now you walk through life with a powerful engine locked inside you, but with the parking brake still on, you keep your dreams in the trunk while pretending the back seat is enough. You talk about purpose, but live in patterns. You want more, but you've settled for manageable. You say you believe in abundance, but you make decisions based on lack. You pray for miracles, but plan for mediocrity. Why? Because you've been conditioned to settle. Settling has become the standard. You celebrate staying the same as if it's success. You applaud survival when you were born to dominate. And you've learned to justify it. I'm being wise. I'm just being realistic. I'm managing expectations. No, you're managing fear. You're babysitting doubt. You're dressing up hesitation and calling it wisdom. But deep down, you know there's more in you. You know there's a voice inside that's tired of pretending, tired of saying, maybe one day, tired of watching others rise while you stand still. That voice is your real self. It's the you that existed before you were trained to settle. It's the version of you that knows playing small is not humility, it's disobedience to the assignment you were born for. You settle for a job instead of building your calling. You settle for a relationship that drains you instead of one that calls you higher. You settle for excuses instead of expansion. You settle for fear when faith was free. And the saddest part is you've convinced yourself that you're okay. But deep down, you know something is off. You know you weren't made for this cycle. You weren't made to live paycheck to paycheck in your finances, in your emotions, or in your dreams. You weren't made to be trapped by survival mode. That's not your identity. That's your conditioning. You've got talents sitting in silence. You've got ideas you've never pursued. You've got a vision so powerful, it keeps visiting you in your quiet moments, in your prayers, in your sleep, but you keep pushing it down because settling has become more comfortable than soaring. Let me be clear. You weren't created to settle. You were created to multiply, to expand, to build, to elevate, to break generational cycles and shift atmospheres. But none of that happens when your faith is caged by fear. People around you may have settled. Your family may have settled. Your community may have settled. But that doesn't mean you have to. Just because something is common doesn't make it correct. Just because something is normal doesn't make it noble. Most people live life like a thermostat, stuck on just enough. They regulate their dreams so they don't overheat their reality. But God never told you to regulate your faith. He told you to walk by it, and walking by faith never feels safe. It stretches you. It exposes the lies you've believed. It forces you to confront every area of your life where you've settled for less. And don't you dare confuse content with complacency. Contentment is gratitude. Complacency is giving up. Contentment says, I'm thankful for what I have. Complacency says, I'll never have more than this. Contentment worships. Complacency waits. Contentment multiplies. Complacency manages. And you were never called to manage smallness. You were called to master greatness. But you can't master what you keep minimizing. You can't transform what you tolerate. You can't dominate what you won't even pursue. It's time to break that conditioning. You can't afford to stay stuck in a mindset that was handed down by people who didn't believe they could do better. You can't keep holding on to thoughts that shrink your future. You can't keep repeating patterns that rob your purpose. You can't keep walking around with anointed potential and average execution. The world doesn't need another person who settles. It needs someone who decides to rise, someone who decides to think different, live different, believe different, someone who decides that settling is not an option anymore. The truth is, there's nothing noble about playing small. There's nothing spiritual about hiding your light. There's nothing righteous about minimizing your gifts to make other people comfortable. You don't honor God by shrinking. You honor him by expanding, by stepping into what he put in you, by taking the lid off your thinking, your believing, your action. Settling says, I can't. Faith says, I will. Settling says, this is all I'll ever be. Faith says, watch what I become. Settling looks at the mountain and stops. Faith looks at the mountain and speaks. No more playing small. No more saying yes when your spirit says no. No more just enough when you were designed for more than enough. No more adjusting your dreams to fit your fears. You've adjusted long enough. You've settled long enough. It's time to rise. It's time to believe again, to dream again, to act again, to speak again, to build again. This is not the end for you. It's the beginning. But you won't step into it if you keep accepting what was never meant for you. So what are you still settling for? What lie are you still agreeing with? Who told you that you're too late? Who told you that you're not enough? Who told you that it's too hard, too big, too far? That's not your voice. That's not truth. That's programming. That's conditioning. That's the echo of voices that never saw the greatness in you. But you see it. You feel it. You know it's there. And now it's time to act like it. You weren't given dreams so you could bury them under routine. You weren't given imagination so you could stay stuck in limitation. You weren't given purpose so you could die in potential. There's a fire in you. There's a kingdom in you. There's a legacy waiting to be unlocked. And all of it is being choked by the mindset of settling. But the good news, that mindset is not permanent. It's not your DNA. It's a decision. And decisions can change. The moment you decide to stop settling is the moment your life shifts. You don't live in the world as it is. You live in the world as you see it. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your expectations, they are the architects of your reality. The way you think determines the way you act, the way you react, the way you plan, and the way you receive. Everything in your life right now, your bank account, your health, your relationships, your confidence, your opportunities, it is all a mirror reflecting what you've been believing. That's not philosophy. That's truth. Your mindset determines your reality. So stop apologizing for wanting more. Stop dimming your light to fit into rooms you've outgrown. Stop settling for anything less than the fullness of what was put inside you. Because the world is not waiting for your excuses. It's waiting for your excellence. It's waiting for your voice, your gift, your vision, your action. It's waiting for you to shake off the dust of settling and step into the fire of destiny. And once you do, everything changes, not just for you, but for everyone connected to your obedience. You are not your failures. You are not your mistakes. You are not the limitations others placed on you. You are not what the past says about you. You are a solution walking around in a body. You are an answer to someone's prayer. You are a vessel of power, purpose, and possibility. But none of that gets activated if you stay settled. The moment you wake up to who you really are is the moment you begin living. And once you wake up, you'll never be able to go back to small thinking again. You can't think like a slave and live like a king. You can't speak defeat and expect victory. You can't carry a poverty mindset and expect prosperity to follow you. What's in your hand is always a reflection of what's in your head. What's around you is always responding to what's inside you. That's why two people can face the same challenge and get radically different results. One panics, one prospers, one shrinks, one expands, one complains, one conquers. The only difference between the two is mindset. If you believe life is hard, it will be. If you believe money is evil, it will run from you. If you believe people can't be trusted, you'll repel connection. If you believe you're not worthy, you'll sabotage every opportunity. Don't you see? Your mindset is the script that your life follows. You can't live above what you believe. And if your belief is broken, your life will reflect that brokenness. Your mindset is the lens through which you interpret the world. It filters everything, your opportunities, your problems, your relationships, your potential. Some people see obstacles and stop. Others see the same obstacle and see a doorway. And the difference isn't luck. It's not intelligence. It's not connections. It's mindset. The way you think either creates doors or builds walls. And if all you see are walls, it's time to stop blaming the world and start transforming your mind. You are the thinker of your thoughts. And that's your superpower. Because if you are the one thinking them, you have the power to change them. You are not your past. You are not your patterns. You are not your pain. You are a creator, not a victim. You've been given dominion over your thoughts. And that means you can rewire your reality by renewing your mind. That's not hype. It's principle. Your future is not waiting for a miracle. It's waiting for a mental shift. Most people are praying for a change in their situation. But the situation is not the problem. The mindset is you're trying to fix the fruit without healing the root. You're trying to solve outside problems with internal confusion. But you can't change your harvest if you're planting the same mental seeds every day. You can't speak limitation all week and expect abundance to show up in your life. You can't nurture doubt and expect faith to grow. Your life is a result of what you've been watering with your thoughts. The world will rise to meet the level of your expectation. So if your expectation is low, if your belief is weak, if your self-image is broken, life will echo that back to you. But if you raise your expectation, if you renew your self-image, if you start to think from the place of promise instead of pain, then your reality will begin to align with the truth of who you were created to be. Your mindset controls your focus, and your focus controls your energy, and your energy controls your actions, and your actions shape your outcomes. So if you want to change your outcomes, don't start with your schedule. Don't start with your environment. Start with your mind. Because even in the right environment, a wrong mindset will lead to failure. But even in a challenging environment, the right mindset will find a way to win. Too many people are living from their history instead of their destiny. They are letting past failures write their future blueprints. They are letting temporary setbacks define their identity. But when you change your mindset, you break that cycle. You stop replaying the old story. You stop living like the old version of yourself. You stop agreeing with lies that say you can't, you're not enough, it's too late, you're too broken, you're too behind. Those are not facts. Those are just thoughts you've been rehearsing for so long that you started calling them truth. Let me ask you something. Who told you to think so small? Who trained you to fear opportunity? Who convinced you that playing it safe was the goal? That's not who you are. That's who you've been conditioned to be. You were born to multiply, not to manage survival. But you've allowed life to reduce your vision down to what feels reasonable. You've been living by logic instead of by leadership from within. And logic is great, but it will keep you grounded if it's not aligned with purpose. You keep saying, I don't know how. But it's not the how, that's the issue. It's the who you believe you are. Because if your mindset says you're not capable, you won't even start. If your mindset says you always lose, you'll subconsciously create situations that confirm that belief. That's how powerful your mind is. It will make you right, even if your belief is wrong. It will twist evidence, distort opportunities, and interpret everything to support your existing narrative. And if your narrative is broken, your life will stay broken. You can't expect increase while thinking from a mindset of lack. You can't speak overflow when your thoughts are drowning in fear. You can't walk into destiny with a defeated mind. You've got to interrupt the pattern. You've got to break the loop, because that loop is not just wasting your time, it's stealing your life. How many more years will you allow an old mindset to delay a new season? Some of you have built beautiful cages out of your mindset. You've decorated limitation, you've settled in fear, and called it faith. But the truth is, God will never give you more than your mind can manage. Not because he's holding back, because he's waiting for you to expand. Expand your thoughts, expand your belief, expand your imagination. Because when you stretch your thinking, you stretch your capacity to receive. You've been praying for a breakthrough. But sometimes God doesn't send a door. He sends a thought. He drops an idea, a revelation, a truth, a mental shift that if you act on it, changes everything. And if you don't, nothing changes. Because the breakthrough didn't come through your hands, it came through your mind. But if your mindset isn't ready, you won't even recognize the opportunity. You'll call it risky. You'll call it unrealistic. You'll call it not for me, and you'll stay stuck while your answer passes you by. Don't be fooled by what's visible. Your life right now is not your final form. It's the result of past thinking. But your next season, that's being shaped by what you're thinking now. That means every thought you allow in, every word you speak over yourself, every belief you nurture, it's building something. So what are you building? Are you constructing a life of purpose, or are you reinforcing a prison of fear? Don't speak what you see, speak what you believe. Don't think from the problem, think from the promise. Don't let the world define your mind. Let your mind redefine your world. Because the truth is, the mind is the battlefield, not your bank account, not your job, not your family. The mind, that's where it's won or lost. And until you take authority over your mind, you'll keep losing battles you were created to win. Because faith doesn't follow sight. It leads it. Faith is a mindset. It's not just belief in God, it's belief in what God has already said about you. And when you think from that place, you stop being reactive. You stop being passive. You stop playing defense in your life. You become a builder, a visionary, a creator. You begin shaping your world, not being shaped by it. You've been given dominion. But dominion starts in thought. You can't dominate on the outside if you're defeated on the inside. You can't rule externally if you're ruled by doubt internally. You've got to renew your mind daily, not just with positive thinking, but with truth, with the kind of thinking that aligns with purpose, that aligns with identity, that aligns with abundance and authority, the kind of thinking that no longer tolerates limitation, the kind of thinking that doesn't wait for evidence to believe. It believes until there is evidence. Small thinking is not humility, it's rebellion in disguise. It's not spiritual modesty, it's spiritual disobedience. You were never created to live a life limited by fear, doubt, or mediocrity. The God who formed you in the secret places of the earth didn't breathe his divine power into you just so you could play it safe, shrink your vision, or survive in silence. No, you were crafted with purpose, wrapped in destiny, and called to reign in a territory far beyond your current comprehension. And yet too many sit in self-imposed prisons made not of iron, but of ideas, of thoughts too small to contain the fullness of what heaven designed. When you reduce your goals to what seems reasonable, you insult the divine intelligence that made you. You've been made in the image and likeness of God, the creator of all things seen and unseen. And what does creation do? It expands, it grows, it multiplies, it dominates. When you think small, when you settle for crumbs instead of reaching for the feast, you are out of alignment with your Creator. You've exchanged spiritual birthright for temporary comfort. You've settled for survival instead of walking in the overflow. It's not about trying harder. It's about thinking higher, because when you think higher, you act differently, you walk differently, you attract differently, and your life begins to shift, not because of external change, but because of internal transformation. That's the secret. That's the key. That's the breakthrough. Your mindset determines your reality, and when you master that, you master your life. It is not humble to think you can only earn a little, bless a few, or reach the people in your neighborhood. It is not holy to stay small so others feel comfortable. That's not the kingdom. In the kingdom, the least becomes the greatest. The last becomes first, and the mustard seed becomes a tree so big that birds nest in it. When God is in it, nothing remains small. So why are you? Most people believe small thinking is wise because it seems cautious. It masquerades as stewardship, prudence, or even maturity. But God never called you to safety. He called you to faith, and faith never fits in a small container. Faith stretches, breaks boundaries, and does what logic calls impossible. So when you say, I can't, it's too late. Maybe one day you are not just talking yourself out of a goal. You are muting the voice of God that wants to operate through you. You are saying to the Spirit, sit down. I know better. Small thinking happens when you define your future by your past. You look at your failures, your background, your mistakes, your bank account, and you say, this is all I can do. But God didn't tell Moses to lead the Israelites based on his rap sheet from Egypt. God didn't ask David if he had military experience before he crowned him king. God didn't wait for Mary to be married before making her the mother of the Messiah. God is not intimidated by your limitations. He's only restricted by your imagination. And when your imagination is locked in fear, you block the flow of divine assignment. Look around you. The people who rise, the people who create movements, who build wealth, who transform lives, they don't have more access to God than you. They just dared to believe bigger. They refused to let the opinions of the small-minded shape their future. They didn't wait for validation. They walked in their calling with boldness, even when others doubted. The truth is, no one's opinion of you matters more than your own belief about what God said is possible for you. If God says you're the head and not the tail, then why are you living beneath the promise? You are not just a body moving through time. You are a spirit with access to divine instruction. And the moment you decide to think bigger, dream higher, speak bolder, you step into agreement with your spiritual design. Thinking small is not a personality trait. It's a decision to live outside of God's will. And every time you shrink your vision to match your surroundings, you delay the very breakthroughs you've been praying for. God cannot multiply what you won't envision. When Jesus walked the earth, he didn't just forgive sins. He opened blind eyes, raised the dead, and fed multitudes with leftovers. He showed us what it looks like to operate in abundance. Heaven never runs out. There is no shortage in the kingdom, but your thoughts can produce a drought even when the well is full. Your mindset can starve you in a land of plenty. The problem is not the provision, it's the perception. You've been authorized to speak to mountains, not climb molehills. You've been told to ask and receive, seek and find, knock and have the door opened. But too many are asking for less than they need, seeking only what they think they deserve, and knocking on doors they don't believe will ever open. That is spiritual disobedience in disguise, because faith without vision is dead, and vision without boldness is wasted. Some of you are praying for miracles but thinking like victims. You're asking for overflow but budgeting for scarcity. You're declaring promises but living like God lies. And the truth is, you're not waiting on God. God is waiting on you to start thinking on his level. Stop asking him to bless plans that are too small to require his power. Stop bringing him thimble-sized visions when he's offering you oceans. God does not invest in excuses. He invests in expectation. When you think small, you limit the impact you were designed to have. You are called to multiply, not just money, but purpose, influence, legacy. But you can't multiply what you refuse to imagine. You can't stretch if you're always shrinking to fit other people's expectations. And you can't become if you won't believe. God gave you dominion, and dominion doesn't live in fear. Dominion doesn't ask permission. Dominion doesn't downplay the anointing just to blend in. It steps into the room and shifts the atmosphere. You're not in Egypt anymore. You've been set free, but freedom without mindset is just relocation. If you don't think differently, you'll find yourself building pyramids in your promised land. You'll repeat cycles you were meant to break. You'll watch others rise and wonder why you're still stuck. And it's not because you're unworthy, it's because you kept dragging small thoughts into a season of expansion. So you've got to break the agreement you made with smallness, the silent vow that says, this is good enough, the quiet compromise that whispers, don't dream too big or you'll be disappointed. That's not faith. That's fear dressed up in spiritual language, and it must be broken. You must begin to speak life over your vision, declare increase over your future, and prepare your hands to receive more than you've ever held before. Why? Because the God you serve is not running out of blessings. The only thing running out is your time to stop thinking like you're still in bondage. You've been called to occupy territory, to break generational curses, to transform cities, to build businesses, to create wealth that funds purpose. But small thinking will make you question if you're even qualified. It will convince you that maybe someone else should do it. And in that moment, you've handed over the authority God gave you. You've left the gate open for fear to move in where faith should reign. So stop measuring your dreams by your bank account, your resume, or your past mistakes. Measure them by the size of your God. Ask yourself, is this vision big enough that I need divine help to complete it? Because if it's not, you're still thinking too small. And thinking small is not just a missed opportunity. It's a misrepresentation of the one who sent you. You are an ambassador of the kingdom. You are not just a dreamer. You are a builder, a creator, a conduit of heaven's power. Don't let your vision contradict your assignment. You were not given a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. A sound mind doesn't entertain smallness. A sound mind doesn't rationalize away miracles. A sound mind says, if God said it, I believe it, and I will act like it's already done. That is obedience. That is spiritual alignment. That is the posture that attracts overflow. Every time you say, maybe one day when God said, now you delay destiny. Every time you say, that's too much, when God said, I'll do exceedingly abundantly above all, you insult his abundance. Thinking small is not being realistic. It's being rebellious. It's refusing to trust the nature of the one who called you out of darkness into marvelous light. So rise up in your mind first. Expand your capacity to believe. Let your thoughts stretch as wide as the sky, because that's where your help comes from. When you came into this world, you arrived with a blueprint stamped on your soul. That blueprint was not one of average living, of hiding in the background, of hoping things work out. That divine pattern was designed for victory. Before you took your first breath, heaven had already declared that you were more than a conqueror. Yet the world, with its noise, its systems, and its cycles, tried to rewrite your identity. It tried to teach you to be afraid, to settle, to live small, to obey fear instead of faith. But deep within you still echoes the voice that says, "You are mine. I have called you by name." You are royalty, born to rule, not to run. You are never meant to simply pass through life unnoticed, unheard, and unseen. You are not created to merely survive the days tolerating mediocrity while suppressing the greatness that burns within your spirit. You were born to dominate, to reign, to lead, to rise. Deep within you is the imprint of the Creator, and that imprint does not speak of weakness, fear, or submission to the limitations of this world. It speaks of divine authority, of strength clothed in purpose, of vision wrapped in eternal calling. You were born to dominate, not just to survive. You're not here to survive. You're here to demonstrate, to be the living evidence of what's possible when faith meets obedience. And there is no obedience without big thinking, because faith doesn't ask if it's allowed. It just walks forward, knowing the ground will appear. Faith builds the boat before the rain comes. Faith prepares the room before the baby arrives. Faith doesn't shrink. Faith multiplies. And when you start living like that, you won't just be blessed, you'll become a blessing that never runs dry. Survival is instinctual, but domination is intentional. Animals survive. They adapt. They hide. They escape. But you, child of God, were made in the image of the one who said, "Let there be light." That same creative power lives in your breath, in your words, in your decisions. You don't just live, you speak things into existence. You don't just endure, you transform environments. You don't just occupy space, you carry authority. That is the truth your spirit knows. But your mind must remember, you were born to dominate. You were designed to lead from the inside out. You must come to see that the battle isn't outside of you. It's within. The war is between the truth of who you are and the lie the world has taught you to believe. And the lie is convincing. It sounds reasonable. It wears the mask of humility. It says, "Who am I to try? Who am I to lead? Who am I to rise?" But that lie has no place in your soul, because the answer is clear. You are chosen. You are appointed. You are backed by the authority of heaven. When you choose to dominate, you are not being arrogant. You are being obedient to your calling. Look around you. Everything that exists is subject to change, but what God placed within you is eternal. This world will tell you to be realistic, to be practical, to play it safe. But faith is not safe. It is fierce. It is bold. It challenges logic because it was never meant to submit to it. You were born to walk in that kind of faith, the kind that breaks barriers, the kind that lifts others while refusing to bow to the fear that holds them back. The kind that says, even if no one believes in me, I still believe in what God has placed in me. Many people are alive, but not truly living. They wake up, go to work, scroll through their phones, and go to bed, never realizing they are walking past the door of destiny every day. Why? Because they have accepted survival as their identity. But you must not. You must not accept a life that keeps you bound when you were made to soar. You must not accept a reality that contradicts the promise over your life. You must learn to reject the noise and tune into the whisper of God that says you are more. This isn't about power for power's sake. This is about ruling over your mind, your emotions, your fears, your patterns. It's about refusing to let depression control your destiny. It's about silencing the lies that tell you you're not enough. It's about taking back the authority you've given to doubt. Domination begins with self-mastery. And once you master yourself, you will begin to master your environment. You will walk into rooms and shift atmospheres, not because you shout, but because you carry quiet power. To dominate is to walk in alignment with the truth. And the truth is this: you are not random. You are not weak. You are not forgotten. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are divinely equipped for the assignment on your life. You are the answer to a problem in this generation. You carry ideas, solutions, healing, and light that someone else is waiting for. Your presence is a gift. Your voice is necessary. Your existence is a declaration of God's intention to impact the earth through you. You were born to think differently, to act differently, to believe differently. You were not called to blend in. You were called to stand out. You were not called to echo the fear of the world. You were called to declare the hope of heaven. And this calling isn't just for pastors or prophets. It's for every person who dares to believe. Every person who wakes up and says, God, use me today. Every person who sees the storm and says, peace, be still. Every person who walks into chaos and becomes the calm. Don't confuse domination with control. The world seeks control, but heaven gives dominion. Control is about manipulation. Dominion is about authority. Control operates in fear. Dominion operates in faith. And when you walk in dominion, you don't need to force your way. You simply become the embodiment of purpose. You become the manifestation of divine strategy. You become the vessel through which power flows, not to elevate yourself, but to elevate the kingdom of God. You were not given dreams so you could ignore them. You were not given vision so you could hide it. Every desire to grow, to rise, to lead, that's not ego. That's divine impulse. That's your spirit remembering who you are. That's your soul crying out to break free from the cage of survival. You can no longer afford to play small. The world doesn't need another copy. It needs the original you. It needs your fire. It needs your wisdom. It needs your resilience. It needs your voice. You were born to bring something to this earth that only you can bring. There will be resistance. There will be days when everything in you wants to shrink back, but those are the moments that matter most, because domination doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens in the dark, in the silence, in the struggle. It happens when you say yes to purpose, even when fear screams no. It happens when you choose discipline over comfort, faith over familiarity, vision over validation. It happens when you stop asking for permission to be great and start walking like you already are. The systems of this world were not built for your expansion. That's why they make you feel guilty for wanting more. They label your ambition as arrogance. They call your faith delusion. But don't you dare shrink. Don't you dare apologize for being chosen. Don't you dare tone yourself down to fit into a room. God told you to transform. You were not called to adapt to dysfunction. You were called to disrupt it. You were not called to maintain the status quo. You were called to overturn it. The authority within you is not weak. It is not hesitant. It is not fragile. It is firm. It is eternal. It is righteous. It is unshakable. And it's time you walk in it. Time you open your mouth and declare who you are. Time you break the silence and release the roar inside of you. The same spirit that raised Jesus from the dead lives in you, not to hide, not to run, but to dominate. This isn't about prosperity without purpose. This isn't about fame without foundation. This is about spiritual alignment, about being who God says you are, not who the world wants you to be. It's about saying no to fear, to limitation, to playing small. It's about walking tall. Even when the journey feels heavy, it's about knowing that every step you take in obedience is a step closer to divine fulfillment. That every time you refuse to settle, heaven rejoices because you're becoming who you were always meant to be. You were not born to blend in with the dust of the ground. You were born to rise with the breath of God in your lungs. You were not created to merely exist. You were designed to expand, to multiply, to flourish, to thrive. You are a living, breathing miracle, not by chance, but by design. You carry the DNA of the divine. You were born to dominate, not in arrogance, but in purpose, not in pride, but in truth, not for self-glory, but for God's glory through your life. There is a lie that's been whispered into the souls of too many people. The lie that in order to be accepted, in order to be liked, in order to be humble, you must make yourself smaller, that you must dim your light so others won't feel blinded. that you must silence your voice so others won't feel intimidated, that you must play down your victories so others won't feel insecure. But I want to tell you today, shrinking doesn't make you humble, it makes you invisible, and you were never meant to be invisible. You were born to shine, to stand tall, to reflect the glory of the one who created you. Humility is not the denial of your greatness. It's the recognition of where that greatness came from. It's not pretending that you're less than who you are. It's knowing exactly who you are and still choosing to serve, still choosing to love, still choosing to walk with grace. But there is a difference, a big difference between humility and hiding. When you shrink yourself, you are not honoring God. You are hiding the very gifts He placed inside you. You're burying the talents He trusted you with. You're covering the light He asked you to shine. Some people were raised to believe that confidence is arrogance, that visibility is pride, that success is selfishness, and so they grow up thinking they must play it safe. They lower their heads, walk quietly, never speak up, never ask for more, never dream too big because they were taught that wanting more makes you ungrateful and being seen makes you boastful. But what if I told you that staying small is actually an act of disobedience? What if hiding your gifts is not humility but rebellion against your divine purpose? You don't inspire people by being invisible. You don't lead by being silent. You don't change the world by playing small. If you look around and wonder why no one sees you, no one celebrates you, no one values what you carry, it might be because you've made yourself too easy to overlook. Not because you have nothing to offer, but because you've convinced yourself that offering it would be too much. You've silenced your own voice before anyone else had the chance to hear it. There's a generation of people right now walking around with brilliance locked inside them, with gifts they never used, with dreams they never pursued, all because they were too afraid to take up space. They confused humility with invisibility. They thought that making themselves smaller would bring them peace, but it only brought them frustration, because the soul knows when it's being restricted. The spirit knows when it's being suppressed. You can only pretend for so long before that inner fire starts to burn through the cracks. You weren't meant to fit in, you were meant to stand out. You weren't meant to blend into the background, you were meant to light it up. When God gives you a vision, when He puts something inside you, He doesn't do it by accident. He doesn't make mistakes. You were designed with intention. You were chosen to carry something this world needs. And playing small doesn't serve anyone. Not you, not the people around you, not even God. Because how can He get the glory if you're too afraid to rise? How can He use you if you're too busy hiding? How can you impact lives if no one even knows you exist? Let's be clear. There is no honor in staying hidden. There is no reward for denying your own light. Shrinking won't protect you. It won't keep you safe. It won't prevent the world from criticizing you, from misunderstanding you, from judging you. But it will rob you. It will rob you of joy, of purpose, of connection, of the very reason you were placed here. You spent enough time being quiet, enough time holding back, enough time doubting yourself. The world is not changed by people who hide. It is changed by people who show up fully, who speak truth even when it's risky, who dream big even when it looks impossible, who believe in themselves even when no one else does. You were born to take up space, to leave a mark, to walk into rooms and change atmospheres, not because you're arrogant, but because you're aligned. When you walk in your calling, when you show up fully as yourself, unapologetically, boldly, courageously, that's not pride, that's obedience, that's worship, that's power. Too many people are waiting for permission to be great, waiting for someone to tell them it's okay to be seen, waiting for someone to validate their dreams. But the truth is, no one is going to give you permission to shine. You have to choose it. You have to wake up every day and say, I refuse to be less than who I was created to be. I refuse to shrink to make others comfortable. I refuse to pretend I'm not gifted, not called, not powerful. There's something powerful about a person who finally decides to stop shrinking, who decides to stop apologizing for their presence, who decides to walk with head held high, knowing that they carry something sacred. That kind of person changes the atmosphere when they enter the room. That kind of person draws opportunities, opens doors, and inspires others to rise. Not because they're perfect, but because they're honest. because they've embraced their calling, because they're done pretending. And remember this, the enemy of your soul would love for you to stay small, because a silent believer is no threat. A hidden voice can't break chains. A suppressed gift can't transform lives. The enemy doesn't fear your silence. He welcomes it, but when you stand up, when you speak, when you shine, when you walk in your full authority, he trembles. Because now you've become dangerous. Now you've become impactful. Now you've become unstoppable. You don't have to make yourself smaller to be loved. The right people will love you at your full size. The right people will celebrate your brilliance, not be threatened by it. The right people will draw closer when you shine, not run away. So don't dull your light for the wrong crowd. Don't become invisible for people who were never meant to see you. Don't let fear convince you that shrinking is safety. It's not. Shrinking is suffocation. You can't breathe fully when you're pretending to be less. You can't live fully when you're constantly editing yourself to make others feel better. You weren't made to be a background character in your own life. You were made to be the main character, to rise, to speak, to impact, to lead. Some of you have dreams you've buried because you thought they were too big. Visions you've ignored because they scared you. Gifts you've hidden because you were afraid to be judged. But what if those very things were the keys to your purpose? What if stepping into them is how you bring healing, how you bring change, how you bring glory to God? It's time to take up space. It's time to stop playing small. You've been given too much to waste, too much wisdom, too much talent, too much heart. Your voice matters, your story matters, your light matters. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop waiting until you feel ready. Stop waiting until they approve. The world needs what you carry right now. So lift your head, speak your truth, walk in your calling, let the world see you. Let your light shine. Not because you need attention, not because you want applause, but because the world is darker when you hide. And your light, yes, your light has the power to guide someone home. You don't honor God by playing small. You honor him by becoming everything he created you to be. You honor him by stepping up when you want to shrink, by speaking truth. When it would be easier to stay silent, by standing tall. When the world tries to push you down, that is humility. Acknowledging that you are nothing without him, but with him you are everything he intended you to be. And here's the truth. People will misunderstand you when you rise. They will criticize. They will judge. They will call it pride. They will call it ambition. They will call it too much. But let them talk, because shrinking won't stop the critics. It will only silence your soul. You weren't created to win their approval. You were created to live your purpose, to glorify your Creator, to impact eternity. That's bigger than their opinions, bigger than their expectations, bigger than their fear. Elevated thinking is not positive thinking. Elevated thinking is spiritual awareness. It's knowing who you are in God. It's knowing that you carry the image of the Creator. And because of that, you are never stuck. Nothing has final say over your life except the one who spoke the stars into existence. Elevated thinking is the refusal to define yourself by your past, your pain, or your current situation. It is choosing to align your thoughts with your purpose, not your problems. Everything begins in the mind. Every breakthrough, every miracle, every new beginning, it starts as a thought. If your thinking is limited, your life will be limited. If your thoughts are fearful, your actions will reflect fear. If your thoughts are divine, bold, and rooted in spiritual truth, your life will unfold in ways that defy logic. The invisible world of thought is the womb of all creation. You cannot change your life without first changing your thinking. That is why true expansion, spiritual, emotional, financial, relational, must always begin with elevated thinking. You are not designed to remain where you are. Everything in the universe expands, trees grow upward, rivers stretch wider, stars scatter across galaxies, and yet many people shrink in their mindset, building fences around their faith and ceilings above their potential. Why? Because they believe what they've been told. They accept the noise of limitation passed down from generations, religion, culture, or past failure. But God has not called you to build your identity around limitations. He has called you to renew your mind daily, not once, daily, because your mind is the battleground between your current reality and your divine destiny. If you want to expand your life, expand your vision, if you want to expand your finances, expand your beliefs about money, if you want to expand your influence, expand your belief in your voice, elevated thinking will always pull you upward into actions, choices, and paths that are unfamiliar, but that is the pathway of transformation. God never elevates people to keep them comfortable. He elevates to fulfill purpose. You must be willing to abandon the comfort of your old thoughts to enter the glory of a new life. Many people sabotage their expansion not because they lack talent or favor, but because their mind is trapped in the prison of old experiences. They've seen failure, betrayal, rejection, and now they expect it. That expectation becomes a prophecy. Your life follows your dominant thought. Whatever you continually believe, you unconsciously attract. But when you elevate your thoughts, you raise your expectations. You start to say, why not me? Why not now? Why not miracles in my life? You start to move as if heaven is backing you because it is. There are people who pray for change, but think like victims. They cry out for abundance, but meditate on lack. They want peace, yet rehearse chaos in their mind. You cannot manifest what you do not mentally agree with. The law of the Spirit works by alignment. You must align your thoughts with heaven's truth. That is what faith is, not merely believing in God, but believing like God. You must begin to speak and see and think from the realm of your calling, not your condition. People often say, I'll believe it when I see it. But elevated thinking says, I'll see it because I believe it. This is the mindset of visionaries, of world changers, of those who walk in spiritual authority. They see beyond the surface. They are not moved by delay, by noise, or by people's opinions. They are grounded in a mindset that comes from heaven. They speak life over dead things. They declare rain in a drought. They build when others are afraid. They sow when others are panicking, because their source is not the world. It is the kingdom. Elevated thinking doesn't deny reality. It declares a greater truth over it. When Jesus walked on water, it didn't mean gravity ceased to exist. It meant a higher law was at work, a divine law above nature, above the expected. That same divine law works in you when you operate from the Spirit. When your thoughts are elevated, you're no longer subject to emotional storms, generational curses, or the statistics of your background. You begin to walk on things that used to drown you. Your peace becomes unshakable. Your purpose becomes undeniable. God has always used elevated thinkers. Abraham believed he was the father of many nations before he had one child. Joseph dreamed of leadership while he was still a slave. David saw victory before he faced the giant. Jesus saw resurrection while others only saw crucifixion. You must begin to elevate your thoughts so high that even in the valley, you still expect a mountaintop. You must speak life when others speak fear. You must declare increase in the face of decrease. That is not denial. That is dominion. There is power in decision. And the most powerful decision you will ever make is to think on a higher level. That is the shift that changes everything. You go from reaction to revelation, from victimhood to victory, from confusion to clarity. Elevated thinking clears the fog of worry and makes room for divine instruction. Suddenly, you're not chasing answers. You're becoming the answer. You stop begging for favor. You start walking in it. You stop shrinking for approval. You start standing in purpose. And dominion is your spiritual inheritance. You were not created to be ruled by circumstances. You were created to rule over them, but you cannot take authority externally until you take authority internally. You must manage your thoughts like a gatekeeper, allowing only what aligns with God's truth. Every low thought must be cast down, every fearful voice silenced, every limiting belief uprooted. You must become aggressive about what you allow to live in your mind, because the battlefield is not your life, it is your mindset. Your habits come from your thoughts. Your words come from your thoughts. Your relationships are chosen based on your thoughts. Your money is handled based on your thoughts. So if you want expansion in any area of life, you must first expand in thought. The mind is the soil. The life is the fruit. Whatever you meditate on, you magnify. If you think small, you live small. If you think big, you create space for the supernatural. Heaven will not invade a space where it is not expected. So elevate your expectations. Speak like it's done. Move like it's coming. Plan like you cannot fail. You must remember, God cannot elevate what you refuse to believe. You are not waiting on God. He is waiting on your agreement. He is waiting for you to see yourself as He sees you, not broken, not confused, not behind, but chosen, anointed, equipped, ready. You've been walking in circles because you keep recycling the same low-level thoughts. But today you can decide, I'm going higher. I'm thinking higher. I'm believing higher. And from that higher place, everything changes. From that altitude, fear looks smaller. Obstacles look weaker. And purpose looks clearer. People will not always understand elevated thinking. They'll call you unrealistic. They'll accuse you of being arrogant or too spiritual. But don't let small-minded people talk you out of your divine calling. You are not here to fit in. You are here to expand the territory of faith, hope, and glory on earth. Your life is a message. Let it say, God is able. Let it reflect miracles. Let it reveal transformation. Let it declare the impossible is possible. That is what expansion looks like. It starts inside, and then it overflows. You were not created to play small with your life. You were not formed in the image of God just to repeat survival cycles. Your life is a container for glory. You are a mirror of heaven, and the more you elevate your thoughts, the more that reflection shines. The more you stretch your mind, the more you stretch your faith. And the more you stretch your faith, the more you stretch your world. So expand, stretch, rise, think as if you're already there, feel as if it's already done, move as if nothing can stop it. This is not delusion, it is spiritual alignment. The world may call it crazy, but heaven calls it faith. And faith is the currency of expansion. Oh, not just more things, but more peace, more clarity, more purpose, more depth, more presence. Your thinking is the gate. Open it wide. Let heaven flood in. Because once your thoughts rise, your life cannot stay where it is. Expansion is not a moment. It is a mindset, a choice, a shift. And once you shift, nothing can remain the same. When you elevate your thinking, you elevate your life. You break through the ceilings that once confined you. You stop settling for what the world told you was enough and start walking in what God always knew was yours. Expansion is not something you force, it's something you allow when your mindset aligns with your divine identity. You weren't made to live small, stuck, or silent. You were created to expand, to stretch into places your ancestors only dreamed of. So dare to think higher, believe bolder, and move as one who knows the kingdom within them is limitless. Because the moment your thinking rises, your entire life follows.